Tonight, we are without Eric Beimfor. But what I've learned from pro wrestling is if you lose out on your main event, you have to bring in a bigger star. And I decided that a bigger star than Eric Beimfor tonight is going to be Mr. John Daigle. And we are going to draft the DraftKings team. So let's just get right into it. Mr. John Daigle, it's been so long since we last spoke. I'm excited to do another draft with you, but now that you're in the DraftKings streets, I kind of wanted to pick your brain about the differences you're seeing between DraftKings and some of the other sites. But first of all, how you doing on this lovely day?
And very early in the DraftKings street, as I was the one asking you less than a week ago, what are the biggest differences you've seen? But just the fact that we're getting different formats, different tournaments, and people are still trying to carry over some of that ADP from Underdog to DraftKings, which I still think is significantly softer. In that case, it is a lot of fun. It's still frustrating too. And this goes to the popularity of Underdog in particular. It's because their UI is amazing. But I didn't even get into the single entry tournament they launched. It literally filled in 48 hours. And so it's little things like that DraftKings at least has them available for me. So I'm still pending and trying to figure out when to use my single entry bullets, but I will absolutely get to those. And those are fun.
They're a lot of fun. I did my last single entry, the $15 one last night, I believe it was. I just enjoy single entry contest. I enjoy the 3 max contest. They're a lot of fun. Unfortunately, I've maxed all of those out, so we can't do any of those here other than the $100. And I'm going to be transparent. We tried to do the $100 tonight, but their lobby was very much not active. So we're gonna jump into one of the $10 ones. I think that the biggest difference between DraftKings and Underdog, obviously the ADP and everything, I'm trying to, and it's been like this for years, but I'm really trying to maximize the scoring system on DraftKings and how I want to approach it that way, because it is not just, full point versus half point PPR. It is much different. It's bonus points. It's all the other things that come with it. And bonus points over a season can be a big edge depending on the player that you have. So I've been trying to dig into a little more of that.
And bonus points, not just as you mentioned through PPR, but quarterback bonuses, wide receiver and tight end bonuses in particular. How many tight ends can actually go over 100 yards? There's probably 2 or 3. That's it. And I agree. So whereas Underdog, these quarterbacks are being jammed. And the big board initially, it was top 20. Now they have cooled down, and the big 3, Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen, and Patrick Mahomes, are typically top 30 picks. And maybe they leak a little bit if you grab their stacking partners in the second round, because the field is now naturally allowing these quarterbacks to slide if they can't logically stack them immediately in the third round. But overall, that's where DraftKings is where I think they should be. If you are targeting that elite top tier, DraftKings is where you should be doing it instead, not Underdog, given that we are getting bonuses for these 300-point games, or in the case of Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts, 100 rushing yard games. So, I almost think DraftKings hasn't naturally reacted to that.
Yeah, and I wonder if that's something that they're going to look at in the coming years. I personally like it because I just think it gives them such a different flavor of tournaments to enter, and I think we get a little bit of an edge there as we think about that. And before we jump into a tournament, the other thing I want to talk about is I've been looking at a lot of builds lately, the way people are building teams, and a lot of the people that we speak with on a consistent basis, the people that watch our content, especially early in the best ball season, we all understand the importance of a build, whether it be 0 RB, whether it be robust running back, elite tight end and everything like that. What I've noticed is there's 2 specific builds that I see people doing that they're just absolutely messing up. And I'm wondering if that is an edge that we can put on our side of things. So the 2 that I'm seeing are the people that try to go with 4 early running backs, from somewhere in the first 5 rounds or so. They'll still tap running back 8th, 9th, 10th round and just completely destroy this build by not getting wide receivers at all at that point. And the other one is, it's an interesting build type that I've seen more people trying and doing the same thing where they'll start two elite wide receivers. It'll be like Jamar Chase, Devonta Smith, or something like that. And then they're going to hit their four running backs. So you're getting like your, say Ramondre Stevenson, Joe Mixon, Aaron Jones. You can put him in that mix because he's in the 5th round, but J.K. Dobbins. So they'll get a mix of those four running backs, and then they keep hitting the running back. So I'm wondering, as people that like understand how to build teams, is that an edge where we can make those builds because we're going to do them better right now than the people that are trying them, and give ourselves a little bit different of a mix of roster construction than all of us that are trying to do the zero RB, the hero RB, and stuff like that?
Yes, and I think that's because since most $25 like BBM content is targeted towards formats, structures, just proper drafting etiquette, I think that's where like the recreational stakes that, again, I think are fun. Even you told me behind the scenes, and I'm sure you've said this on shows in Spike Week that I may have missed, that you think the $9 single entry or 3 maxes, for example, it's the best tournament out there. Given rake, given payout, flatter payout as well, not only just top heavy, that it's the best. But I also think the content lacks for those trying to do those structures correctly. And so I think that's actually the biggest edge, to your point, on DraftKings right now, is the fact that no one is at least drafting correctly, quote unquote correctly. They're still lacking in stacking. They're still lacking in week 17 stacking. They're still lacking in, whereas Underdog, even a half PPR league, we go one wide receiver. Right now, we know the 2nd and 3rd rounds are stuffed with RB1s, just given the way wide receivers are pushed up the board. And so we draft 2 running backs. If that's the case, then we're laying it off until like the 10th or 11th round. DraftKings, It really feels like everyone's just forgetting that, or doesn't even know, perhaps, since we are dabbling in lower stakes now. And so, yes, that's the biggest edge. And that makes it more fun for us, honestly.
Yeah, so it's made me want to start experimenting more with some of those builds and then just build them properly against some of the people that are doing other things. So those are some of the things that I have actually been looking at as I do a lot more of these DraftKings drafts. I've also seen it a little bit in Underdog, but not as much as the other stuff. But I think it's time. I think we're going to jump into a draft right now on DraftKings. We're going to do the $10. You're going to draft the team. I'm going to draft the team. And we're going to see who takes home the $1 million, because I'm pretty sure that this is the stream that somebody is going to win $1 million, and it's going to be either myself or you, John Daigle. And I'm not going to lie to you, I'm hoping it's me.
Of course you would. We should have a pact, though. If one of us wins the $1 million, there should be like a percentage that goes to the other, since we're competing in the same room. I just updated my DraftKings rankings too, so I'm excited to test them out live. And that's what's good, is that the $10, at least, although it is very top heavy, just like a BBM, $10 drafts on DraftKings do always fill immediately. But as you mentioned, the $555 millionaire, the $44, and the $100 are prone to waiting. And that's like the one annoying aspect right now.
Yeah, and I think that's going to change in the next couple of weeks. I think more and more people are going to be getting on DraftKings, and those tournaments are going to start filling a little bit easier. It looks like I get the 7th overall pick because it is not allowed for any of these streams to get a top 2 pick ever. And it looks like you're at the 9 hole.
I am at the 9 hole. Yes.
Would you prefer the 7 or the 9?
They both suck, but I think the 9, I've gotten so much more because I've just had the worst draws in Underdog. And so I've actually like become accustomed to drafting from 10 on. And so I've gotten accidentally like so used to so many Charger stacks because Eckler, Herbert, Allen, and Mike Williams are always there. Bijan as well, and then perhaps reaching for Fields in the 3rd, 4th round. The Jets, Browns, week 17 stack with Garrett Wilson, Nick Chubb, Elijah Moore, Deshaun Watson. That's and even Breece Hall, since he's dropped to the mid-3rd. Those are all so easy and accessible on Underdog. So I've kind of gotten used to honestly drafting in the back, for better or worse.
Yep. It looks like we're also drafting with a former winner of this tournament. Felix is in this draft as well.
Awesome.
So that's fun.
I've just started dabbling because we're 2 weeks out now from the launch of the main event on FFPC. So I've actually just gotten into FFPC lately as well. I'm in a couple slow drafts. I'm doing a live draft, maybe even on air tomorrow if the draft fills. The 9:30 p.m. Eastern, if you want to get in, FFPC $125 best ball tournament. But I'm slowly dabbling into that now. And man, just to see the variations and the differences in ADP, it's crazy. Even today, like I know tight end premium is obviously what happens, the scoring format on FFPC, but just to dive in for one of your first ones. And then like I'm at 102 and I say, okay, I'm getting Kelsey, but then Kelsey actually goes 101 most of the time. And so you get Jefferson at 102. Even those kind of discrepancies are a little wild and just, you have to wrap your head around it.
So I'm gonna be honest. I've never done an FFPC draft. I think I signed up last year and didn't do it. So that might be something that I have to dabble in at some point as we look at. Yeah, it does look like a lot of fun. I've watched a couple, but I've never actually done the FFPC. There's the great thing is there's so many options. Remember when we used to just do mock drafts? That was a thing.
I cannot imagine that era. I'm not old enough to remember when we only did mock drafts.
We did mock drafts and people would just leave the draft after they got their first round pick. It would be like, all right, I got Derrick Henry, time to leave. Don't need to see anything else.
I'm still stuffed into a lot as being part of the industry. It's like you still get invited into like actual mock drafts for people to print up in their magazines or in their draft guides. And it's still just wild to me to actually participate in something that money isn't on the line.
I know, it's so crazy. It's crazy.
It always feels like you're wasting your time, but they're so popular still. It's crazy how many people love them.
All right, we see Jefferson, Chase, Kupp, McCaffrey, Eckler go off the board here. So we still got Tyreek. We still got Kelsey on board. Pretty interesting that that's the way that this board runs out. And the last pick was Tyreek Hill. Generally, I should be going Travis Kelsey here, but you know what? We're going to mix it up a little bit from this spot, and we're going to grab A.J. Brown. I'm a big A.J. Brown guy this year, so let's mix it up a bit.
I knew Kelsey was going to get picked right before me.
Yep.
In that case, I think I'm just going to get Stephon Diggs exposure and get out of the way. I'm just making sure.
Are you worried that he's trying to become the head coach of the Buffalo Bills?
I am not. No, I don't pay attention to, honestly, much of the OTA headlines except for who is playing in 3 wide sets. That's all I care about.
That's fair. Yeah, it's an interesting little story. That's a big nothing burger in Buffalo, as far as I'm concerned. Like, just manufactured headlines is all I think is going on there. It's whatever. He wants a hand on the play calling. Okay. And he's sliding because of it. People are worried because of this situation. The overreaction will never end.
I think I'm going to do a wrap up article thread. I don't know how to do it just yet. Once OTAs comes to an end later this week, and then training camp, I am going to spend a majority of my drafts. I don't think I'm going to reach 150 in BBM because I'm trying to do them all live, but not or I'm trying to do all live drafts, not stream drafts like Overzet. And if that's the case, even my schedule right now, I'm up against the clock, but I think I'll get to 100. But I'm trying to do a majority of them during training camp, just buying ADP dips. Since I think last year set the tone in news mattering significantly less in training camp. Like all we did was throw each other off, like overanalyzing Josh Jacobs' dip is the biggest one, for example. Hold on, let me make this pick really quick. We got Diggs, Wilson. I think a Wilson or a Olave is my pick here. Tony Pollard. Yeah, I'm going to go Garrett Wilson here.
Olave would have been interesting. That would have been a bit more of a unique combination with Stephon Diggs. Maybe not crazy, but they're kind of on the other side of the board. And that's some of the stuff I start to think about around this time of year. It's like, how can I get a little different? Does it matter? Are they going to start sliding up or down the board? And I do like to try to get some stuff that's a little unique. So what I'm going to do to get completely unique, that's something that nobody's ever done, I'm going to stack Jalen Hurts with A.J. Brown since it's not being done in these drafts.
Not in the $1 million tournament whatsoever. No one's thought of it.
No one's considered it once, I don't think. So I'm going to do it and get completely unique. We do see the Kelsey drafter go with Olave. So that's a little interesting. I don't think it's completely out of the realm of stuff that's been done, but again, you're looking at the board being flipped just a little bit, so might not be as common as other stuff. The thing that I'm starting to consider a little bit more, and maybe this is a spicy take, is, and it might not be prevalent on DK, it might actually be the 3 spot.
Mhm.
With the beat, the one thing I did notice that the beat reporters say in Cleveland is that they're not bringing in a veteran back to compete, not compete with Nick Chubb, but to like give him support like Kareem Hunt in the past. If that's the case, and they're going to go into this season, and I know he's not like a complete bell cow. I mean, who is anymore? I'm starting to think that Nick Chubb should probably be the second running back off the board going forward. I
Okay.
mean, I definitely like him more than Barkley, Taylor, Henry this year, who have all gone before him in this draft.
Oh,
Bijan could just be an absolute beast, right? Like there's potential that Bijan's the best running back in the league this year. I understand that, but I think there's a strong case that Nick Chubb is just going to be the leader in rushing again.
I completely agree. He is my RB4 or 5. Right now, I have Tony Pollard ahead of him. I am still waiting on a potential veteran. It doesn't sound like it's going to be Dalvin Cook. So I just don't know how many more bullets around Pollard we need to survive. It seems like it's all done now, and he's the only real option to use. But Nick Chubb should be up there. Remember when Deshaun Watson went under center, the Browns increased their drop back rate from 11 personnel, 3 wide sets, to 76%. Top 10 rate compared to 16th overall league average with Jacoby Brissett. And from 11 personnel, Nick Chubb not only averaged 7 yards per carry last year, but 5.6 yards per carry for his career. Like, he was already a top 6 running back in points per game with Kareem Hunt healthy in every game. Now imagine Kareem Hunt not being there. I know Jerome Ford, the drum beat gets louder, but Jerome Ford doesn't have standalone value. It's still Nick Chubb's backfield.
Yeah. And I just think that maybe it's tough to say a guy that's going in the second round is too low, but I think there might be potential that he is too low. Jahmyr
I
Gibbs
agree.
jumps up over Jacobs and Stevenson here, which is quite interesting. I'm pretty out on Josh Jacobs this year, personally, at his price. So I'm going to grab some Stevenson and make that pick.
Josh Jacobs is definitely the worst first-round pick for redraft leagues. I really came into the year when drafts initially opened up on Underdog thinking he was going to be the easiest fade, but then it's so sharp that everyone always already allows him to slip to like the mid, the end of third. And in that case, I take him every time. But, like a league high 394 touches, not going to be repeated. Only 5 running backs in the last decade have reached 390 touches. And the 4 before him, although a small sample, didn't reach 237, didn't eclipse 237 the next year. It's just an easy workload situation to avoid. Having said that, I think I may have am about to take him, honestly.
That's what you have to do. You have to just talk about how he's not good and then draft him. That's how it.
I hate best ball. Like the micro analysis is just so stupid because I still end up taking players I don't want at all.
Right. See, me, I just don't take them, and then I either cry or get very happy at the end of the year. So I took him a hell of a lot last year. I'll say that.
See, I did not. I avoided him last year, so maybe I'm just spicy about it. And as I was mentioning for training camp, like not only did it not help us whatsoever last year, it only made our decisions worse. And this year, remember, they keep 90 men on the roster for the first time ever. The rules changed, the CBA changed until the last day, until like literally after the final game of training camp. So we're going to see some wild and just different rotations that don't matter at all because teams are just trying to evaluate who they should keep on their roster.
Is there any specific situation in the league that you're looking at, whether it be like a wide receiver core? Usually happens a little bit more of the running back core, that it's just like there's a guy that people think are going to make the roster and he probably isn't, or he's very much in jeopardy of not making the team, or as safe as people think?
That's a good question.
I'm going to grab Judy while you consider it.
It's usually running backs. I'm trying to think of who may not be safe. Hunter Renfrow, I think, is the most obvious cut candidate coming up, whether it be training camp or not. Zach Ertz, I would imagine, definitely gets cut, and they just continue rebuilding around Trey McBride all year, who isn't good. And then let's see, who else have I been considering as a cut option? I'll think about it throughout the show.
Well, let me ask you about one situation that we had a big discussion on doing our $500 single entry Bulldog draft on
Mhm.
Underdog today.
Y'all record those picks individually, right?
Well, it was supposed to be individually, but because we had the 11 pick, sorry, yes, the 11th
Mm,
slot, the guy behind us keeps drafting like immediately. So we do 2 picks at a time generally.
cool.
And we were on our 11th and 12th pick today, and we were weighing Khalil Herbert and some of the other guys in that range. And we were talking very heavily about that backfield, how they drafted Roshan Johnson. They brought in Donta Foreman. They still have Travis Homer on that roster. And one of the arguments was it feels like they don't believe in Khalil Herbert, and that of all the guys, he has the easiest contract to cut. Now, no one said that they were
Mm.
actually going to cut him or anything like that, but they just think that his leash might be really slow, really small, and that other guys may be coming in. Do you have any thoughts on that? I know you are in Chicago.
I have no thoughts on that. I don't know if I see that same non-belief though, because like remember when David Montgomery returned, so they got injured a lot together last year. They started out together. They didn't use Khalil Herbert at the beginning of the year. A new coaching
Mhm.
staff still trying to figure out their offense. Then David Montgomery got injured for a couple games. Khalil Herbert was an every down back. And then Khalil Herbert got injured and David Montgomery got thrusted back into an every down role. But when Herbert returned for that end of the year, like he basically split touches. Montgomery only handled 57% of the backfield touches because I think that was less of them believing in Montgomery and more so they believed in Herbert and just liked what he brought to the table as an all around back. So I don't know if I would imagine he's not a workhorse given the roles they brought in with Foreman, who's a closer, and Roshan Johnson, who's like an amazing special teams gunner and will be active every single day, also amazing at pass protection. But that doesn't mean that Herbert isn't very useful and still leads that backfield in touches. So I don't know if I buy into that at all.
So my argument is I just think that they're still going to give Herbert the chance to be obviously not a bell cow.
Mhm.
Again, we're not doing that anymore. I think he has the chance to lead them in touches unless somebody just comes out. Like if Roshan Johnson comes out and just has this amazing preseason and training camp, then yeah, maybe he gets it. But I think Herbert is going to be given the chance to fail there. And I'm still kind of in on Herbert, especially where he's going in these drafts. I think there's a ton of upside there. But I don't
That
think
makes
anyone's getting cut from that team
okay.
personally.
That's fair. Yes, I definitely don't think Herbert's getting cut. He's a very good player.
Yeah, I think it would be kind of silly if they cut him. The one that I talked about, we talked about on your show, is I think Rashad Penny's getting cut for sure, and I will die on that hill until he's on the day one roster and scores 2 touchdowns.
Completely fair. I also brought on uh, Adam Hutchinson and Edwin Porras onto the most recent, the most accurate podcast to talk injuries since they are the fantasy analyst everyone gravitate towards. And they even mentioned that Rashad Penny, even at his lowly ADP, really isn't a situation you want to buy given like all the red flags surrounding returning from injury and just his past. This is the
Mhm.
greatest indicator of future injury is past injury. You just have to know how
Interesting.
to break it down and analyze it properly.
Yeah, I think we sometimes just hold on to what players could have been sometimes, and we just ride it all the way to the bottom. And I just think he's on the absolute clearest trajectory of what Rashad Penny could have been. We saw flashes of it. If he was really something that was, going to be anything in the league this year, Seattle would have found a way to hold on to him. The Eagles are paying him nothing.
Mhm.
I mean, Seattle told you they wanted to move on. There's probably a reason. There's someone that's going to give him a chance. The Eagles kick the tires. And speaking of Eagles running backs, I don't do it too often, but let's grab DeAndre Swift to grab this whole Eagles stack here.
Oh, we got some dipping running backs though.
We do. I do like Dobbins better than Swift, but just for this specific team, I'm going to grab Swift. So yeah, I think it's I think they I think the Eagles lucked into a situation where Swift became available, and it's easy to cut Rashad Penny. And they like Gainwell, they like Boston Scott, and that's where I stand on that. And like I said, week 1, Rashad Penny will be active. He'll score 2 touchdowns, and I will cry for the rest of the season. He's
Completely
probably what's going to
fair.
happen.
Again, his ADP is just so inconsequential in my opinion, since he is falling beyond the dead zone. It's not like anyone's even trying to shove him up there. Then I just really don't mind taking him, but he's not a player, admittedly, that I end up with a lot.
Right.
Neither is DeAndre Swift. Maybe I'll regret that.
Yeah. I don't grab Swift hardly ever. Sometimes when I have Hurts, I'll take him just to get some sort of double stack with either Devonta Smith, AJ Brown, sometimes even Dallas Goedert, like do some sort of weird Hurt stack there. But yeah, I'm not grabbing a ton of Swift. There's other guys that I just like around him. J.K. Dobbins specifically. I liked Madison more than I like Swift. He's obviously riding up the board since Dalvin Cook got cut. And when we knew that was going to happen a month in advance, we just wait till it actually happens to react, which is why I think drafting early is still just a massive, massive edge.
I agree with you. That's why I'm trying to get all my single entries out of the way too, because I do think drafting early is significantly better.
All right. So where do I want to go here? I do like Cam Akers a ton. Oh my God. I don't think I can pass up on this Cam Akers situation here. So
Damn it. Yeah, I was hoping you'd let him fall.
All right, let's look at your team real quick as you're going to be coming up on the clock. You got
I just got a
Diggs,
bunch of receivers. I got nothing.
Garrett Wilson, Josh Jacobs, Amari Cooper, George Kittle, Hollywood Brown. Decent start for you. Right now, I have AJ Brown, Jalen Hurts, Ramondre Stevenson, Jerry Jeudy, Chris Godwin, DeAndre Swift, Cam Akers. So a little bit of a different start for me.
And they couldn't just let me have George. They couldn't let me have, gosh. Maybe I do this. Maybe I go 2 tight end. Okay.
Ooh,
we're going to start. Yeah, we're going to start trying something here. It is a millionaire.
Hacker brings up the same thing happened with the Cardinals wide receivers. We knew D-Hop was leaving and then took his actual release for some of those guys to get pushed up a little bit, which is true.
Yes. Right. And that's something that, civilization gets worse at this, where 48 hours seems like a year. And so we actually started moving into the area where people started beginning to say, like, why is Alexander Madison going to get cut? That doesn't make any sense. And it's like, no, you're just, of course, or I'm sorry, Dalvin Cook. It's like, of course he's getting cut.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it was in the beginning, it was the Dalvin Cook, Joe Mixon thing. They were both talked about getting cut. One of them made sense. Dalvin Cook made sense. Joe Mixon didn't make sense. Definitely didn't make sense after the Bengals didn't draft anybody to replace him. And you've seen the results of that. He slowly started moving up the board as well, back into the 4th round. He'll probably get up into the 3rd round. I could easily see him getting drafted over Travis Etienne by drafters by the time we're talking again in a month or so. So,
gosh, drafts just get so ugly.
They do get pretty ugly. Early. I'm interested to see what you do with this double elite tight end. Waller is a guy that I've had a blind spot for, and I've been starting to think that might be sort of a mistake, to be completely honest.
Just when I think about who can actually be a tight end 1, Kyle Pitts is not someone that comes to mind. It's Darren Waller. Like, to soak up 25% of the Raiders' targets for 3 years, 2019 to 2021, they add Devontae Adams, and then they add Josh McDaniel, and then Josh McDaniel sends Waller on just fly routes. Like, Waller's 14.5-yard depth of target last year led all tight ends. It's not how you use them at all. And for him then to see just 16% of the team's targets after that, it was just like a random year. Like when Tyler Higbee led the league in run blocking, like, you just throw it out the window. It's like, that was stupid. They're not going to do that again. So I just kind of ignore anything from last year and think if Waller stays healthy, which is a major if, 15 games missed the last 2 years, then of course he has tight end 1 in him, because Daigle will absolutely scheme an offense around him. They sent a day 2 pick for him. That's pretty large capital for a 30-year-old. So I believe in their belief of Waller more than anything.
And just worry about the Darren Waller becoming Jimmy Graham situation, because Jimmy Graham was this amazing tight end, and then just out of nowhere was nothing, just dust, and on a different team every year, it felt like. So I don't know. I get flashbacks, Daigle. I'm too old for this. I've seen some things.
Completely fair. And as Rob notes in the chat, that's not your like burner, right? I need to make sure you're not looking at the chat. That's kind of my argument with Marquise Brown as well. I'm still really worried about him. Because remember, it was only a couple of games, but at the end of the year, whenever Kyler Murray wasn't in and DeAndre Hopkins was out, Marquise Brown only averaged 68 receiving yards per game. Like, he got the targets. He led the team in targets. He had 40% of Arizona's air yards in that final month, but it didn't matter at all because quarterbacks are so bad. And so that is my concern too, that his target share won't matter at all. But at the same time, I still think that receiver gets so bad so early that I don't mind taking him as my wide receiver 4 or 5.
I've taken some shares of him, but I kind of have this approach to best ball that's a little bit different than others. Usually at the beginning of the year, and it can evolve as I get more information, I try to find like 4 or 5 offenses that I just completely throw away for the most part. Like, I'm just not going to draft this offense. They're going to be one of the worst. And sometimes it really backfires. I was out on Seattle last year, right? Very, very bad for me. But I was also out on the Saints last year, which generally was fine. I mean, Olave looked like a stud, but not having Saints wasn't a big deal last year. So I tried to do it kind of does, how do I want to put this? It kind of limits my exposure to bad offenses, but it also heightens my exposure to some of the middling offenses that have a chance to explode. And it's an approach I've taken over the last 2 years. And clearly I haven't won a best ball mania or anything with it, but I've returned profits. So I don't hate the approach. It's just when you miss, like I did with Seattle, it can hurt you pretty badly.
Completely fair. And right now, I think it's the Bucks who I just get nothing of and have zero interest in getting any of them. And what other offenses have I just don't care about? I'm kind of looking through everything. I maybe come away with.
You are on the clock, just so you know.
Okay, hold on. Let me do this. Oh gosh, this is ugly.
Yeah, I kind of just ruined that wide receiver tier. If that's what you were looking to do, it's like
I'm kind of
the cutoff guy.
Kind of looking at a lot of stuff. I guess I'll go naked Anthony Richardson. Let's try that.
Ooh,
and then I got one running back for Joe. I got my workhorse who's not going to get 237 touches.
I've been taking some more Richardson than I had been in the past with him falling a little bit, especially on like elite quarterback builds, because I just think the upside there, getting him in that 9th or 10th round to pair with like a Mahomes, an Allen, or Jalen Hurts for that matter, just the amount of upside you can have every week at the position. And if Richardson does bust, you're still pretty much covered.
Yeah, I'm not too worried just yet. I'm just making sure I don't lose my stacks here.
All right, after my next pick, I kind of want to take a peek and see if there's any interesting builds going on in this draft. I know someone just took Russell Wilson, which is interesting because I have Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy on my team.
That is interesting, especially because he took him really early too.
Yeah,
the Cousins going to fall probably unless someone took Jordan Addison at the back here.
Addison is a guy that I don't hate at all. I like him as a player, but I think he's gotten steamed up a little bit too much for some reason.
That's my issue with TJ. Like, I never get TJ Hawkinson because he's like, I don't know. For some reason, he's being overvalued again, just like last year. Like, he's a player who's never shown he has a ceiling ever. We just buy into his profile year over year. And even last year, he actually averaged more points per game with the Lions than he did with the Vikings. He just had those 2 blow-up games. His only 2 games over 80 yards, by the way, with Minnesota, both against the Giants, who were bottom 9 in catches per game allowed to opposing tight ends. But even then, like Hawkinson wasn't a player to be drafted like a top 5 option. He just had a higher floor. He still wasn't a ceiling guy. So Hawkinson is someone like I just never get pieces of.
I have to really be trying to get Hawkinson, if that makes sense. And it's usually like some sort of Justin Jefferson double stack situation, and I've probably only done it 2 or 3 times between both of the sites I guess all 3 of the sites right now. To your point, it's a lot of we're investing a lot of draft capital in Vikings and then waiting and pushing down their quarterback. So he's 10th, 11th, 12th round 10th, 11th round for Kirk Cousins. But we're saying that offense is going to be so good that we can support Justin Jefferson, Alexander Madison, TJ Hawkinson, Jordan Addison. So one of these things doesn't make sense. They either can support all these guys and Cousins is a little bit better than where he's getting drafted, or it's just the Justin Jefferson show and maybe like the Alexander Madison show again, in my opinion.
Right. And even Justin Jefferson, remember, he got better with TJ Hawkinson because his depth of target increased from 8 yards to 11.5 yards. Because all they did, which is also why Hawkinson doesn't have a ceiling, all they did was bring Hawkinson to closer to the line of scrimmage, and he led the team with 60% of his targets within 9 yards of the line of scrimmage. They just said, you're going to go underneath, not Jefferson anymore, and we're going to send the better player out deep every time. And like his ceiling, so Jefferson's ceiling's increased, while Hawkins just kind of stayed the same. But maybe Addison takes away from Hawkinson. So that's why I kind of mix it up. But just where you get to draft Hawkinson, basically around the beginning of the third, end of third, I just don't ever get any of them.
All right, I'm back on the clock here. It is getting very ugly very quickly. God, what do I have for a roster? What makes sense for me here?
What do you have for a roster?
I'll go over it after I make this terrible pick. I never draft him, but I think he makes sense on this team. Oh, I'm going to vomit when I press this button. I think that's my first share of Juju, but we did it.
He's getting the injury ADP dip right now.
Yes. So
since everything I was out of camp was like, he's not practicing because his knee injury is more serious than they thought.
Good. Glad that I grabbed him.
I'm drafting another running back for you, Joe. There you go.
All right. So right now I went AJ Brown, Jalen Hurts, Ramondre Stevenson, Jerry Jeudy, Chris Godwin, DeAndre Swift, Cam Akers, Cortland Sutton, Zay Flowers, Devon Achane, Juju Smith-Schuster. Daigle right now went Stephon Diggs, Garrett Wilson, Josh Jacobs, Amari Cooper, George Kittle, Hollywood Brown, dips back in at tight end with Darren Waller, grabs Jahan Dotson, double taps QB with Anthony Richardson and Aaron Rodgers, and then grabs Elijah Mitchell as his second running back. So right now, I do not have many Week 17 stacks. In fact, I am only looking at Devon Achane and Zay Flowers as a Week 17 stack, but that is something that is easily rectifiable going forward. And luckily, I have the overlay that helps me do such things.
I draft so much that I kind of backwards engineer always my stacks, where I actually start by drafting Week 17, and then I draft players. I don't know if that's wrong or right, but again, that's for someone who is going to finish with like 100 BBMs and just so many in this one and yada, yada. Where a single entry, I think I do it a little bit differently. Don't want running back, don't want to receive. I think we're going to go. Gosh, I'll go Herbert. Stupid.
We talked about him. You were into him earlier.
It was nearly a full round after ADP too.
That's
fair. It's a little bit of a dip.
All right, don't look at my ownership percentage on Rashee Rice. I don't want you to shame me.
I'm the only one drafting Rashee Rice.
Do you not see my 37%, sir?
Oh, I didn't see it. No. Okay. Did you know that I was the only one selling Rashee Rice to everyone?
It's me and you, buddy.
And I have him 31% last I checked on Underdog.
Good. So me and you can go down with the ship together.
Well, I just like that he's a totally different player, totally different style of player than every other receiver on that roster that was unable to like run a full allotment of routes. Like not only 6'1", 204, but remember, he ran from the slot, 94% route rate from the slot in 2021. And then Houston moved him to the boundary the next year, and he ran 83% of his routes in his final year from the boundary. So wherever they need him to produce from, or at least be on the field from, that's what he's already shown. He can play both positions. Whereas Kadarius Toney and Sky Moore, they're all these little Mickey Mouse receivers. Like they don't run full routes or play both positions. So I just want someone who can stay on the field.
Yeah, and Joe was asking why we were so high on Rashee Rice, and everything Daigle said is exactly what I was going to say. And we see a gigantic tight end run, which just kind of caught me off guard, where Laporta, Kmet, Everett, Dolchich, and Tyler Higbee go within 6 picks. 5 out of 6 picks are tight ends. So that was a little bit of a interesting development in this draft. All right.
Definitely interesting. Who do you have at tight end right now?
I do not have a tight end, sir.
Okay. Since I went too early, I was trying to honestly begin my quarterback builds with Daniel Jones, but then even he got taken before it came back to me. But in this case, since they don't have the same bye week, I'm going to be done. I'm just going 2 tight ends in this tournament. And ideally, hopefully always have a elite tight end, maybe.
I think when you invest the draft capital that you did, that is the way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to grab Kendre Miller here for my 5th running back. I got the week 16 matchup with the Rams. I got the week 17 matchup with Tampa since I have Godwin. And these wide receivers, I do like Mingo a little bit, but I think I'm going to go with Miller instead and grab a 5th running back. That was another big discussion today because I see so many outcomes for this Saints backfield this year. I mean, we don't know what's going to happen with Kamara at this point.
Mm-hmm.
All kinds of stuff. So it's just a tough backfield to read, and you're really throwing darts, I think, until that suspension comes down.
I don't actually have much Jonathan Mingo. It is a few spots past ADP, so I think I'll go ahead and get some. That's fun. I never draft him because everyone always takes him too early.
I do like Mingo. I've been drafting him a decent clip. I like him because I like where he goes in the draft, right? So that's all it is for me. That's an offense that I'd like to throw away, Carolina, because it just feels like there's going to be a lot of growing pains there. Not a lot to like, in my opinion, on the offense as a whole. But there's a chance Mingo's an every down player for them. So when he's getting drafted here in the whatever round we're in, 13th, 14th round, 13th round, it's like we're throwing darts anyways. You might as well throw one on a guy that might be on the field 90% of the time.
I still get worried about receivers who basically just couldn't produce in college, but he was always injured, and he does have an amazing profile, so maybe he works itself out. I also like DJ Shark. Maybe that's why I don't grab much Mingo, because I think DJ Shark is going to be an every down receiver in 3 wide. Well, not every down, 3 wide sets anyways. Maybe even start the year ahead of Mingo. And Shark has already proven he has spike week capabilities, so don't mind him.
Yeah, he kind of fits on teams because of that. You get him in the 14th round. You only need him to actually produce maybe 2 or 3 times for you to get into your lineup. So totally understand that.
All right. Took Jerome Ford a few spots ahead of ADP after we talked about him, but this kind of running back build basically needs spot starts. I'm not really worrying about consistency here.
I'm going to grab my first tight end. I have Rashee Rice. Let's grab Irv Smith for the Kansas City week 17 stack. Am I in love with Irv Smith? No, but 14th round feels fine. Just fine. They're going to throw it to the tight end some in Cincinnati, right? Like, I mean, obviously we want Chase, we want T. Higgins, but we saw Hayden Hurst get some work there last year. I imagine if Irv Smith can stay on the field, he will still draw some targets.
Yeah, Hurst averaged 5.5 targets per game before he suffered that concussion. Was it concussion or ankle injury? Whatever he got injured from mid-year, he was getting serviceable usage. Like, they're never going to soak up a lot of the targets because of T. Higgins and Joe Mixon and Jamar Chase, obviously. But you get some work from Joe Burrow, you're fine. I'm more worried, like, is it Irv Smith? Can Irv Smith make an NFL roster? I think that's my question more than anything. Because it's like 1 year and it's not even, what is it, 1.4 million, and that includes the bonuses if he reaches them. It's not even that much.
Well, Cincinnati had like no money to give out. That was the other problem. They had to get creative on getting anyone on that roster. We got to bet Joe Burrow for MVP this year, right? Like this, they just have to go nuts this year with all the money they're going to have to invest in these three guys. That this is like, I don't want to say the window closes after this year, but it gets a lot tougher to keep it open.
I think that's what they said. They can't even like go to the table with T. Higgins for negotiations until they like figure out Joe Burrow's contract.
Right. Which is going to be so insane. All right, let's see what we got for quarterback here. Grab Stroud, Howell. I think I'm going to push quarterback for a second. And I think I'm going to grab another wideout. And to be honest, Jalen Hyatt makes the most sense on this particular team, so we're going to do that. And that'll be our 8th wide receiver. But we have the Week 17 matchup with Cam Akers, so we get the Jalen Hyatt. So now we're starting to build out our Week 17 stacks, Daigle. I got 4 of them now. So enjoy.
You are catching up.
Let's see where you go here.
I'm trying to see where I go here too.
Remember when we were drafting forward in the 18th and 19th rounds earlier this year? That was fun. You had to take him in the 14th for this particular draft.
If I go, is Bryce Young already off the board? Yeah, he is, isn't he?
Yep. You're on DraftKings, buddy. This is where the quarterbacks are gone by round 15.
Or I just need to add to my running backs then.
So you got a 2-5-6-2 build right now. Let's just go over your team. You have Stephon Diggs, Garrett Wilson, Josh Jacobs, Amari Cooper, George Kittle, Hollywood Brown, Darren Waller, Jahan Dotson, Anthony Richardson, Aaron Rodgers, Elijah Mitchell, Khalil Herbert, Jonathan Mingo, Jerome Ford, and Chuba Hubbard. Are you ever impressed when you read out your team on stream and you remember every player's first name?
No. Does that happen here?
Sometimes I'm like, man, it's just like we know 8 billion names for these guys, like, and we're able to remember them all. It's
when you've written them down or done all this for as long as I've done it, like nothing, they just come to mind now. Gosh.
Interesting to see what you do off of this pick.
The wrong pick. That's what I'm about to do here.
Interesting.
I guess Ty Chandler. Again, I'm still striving for running backs here. I think I'll finish with 8 receivers, maybe 7. We don't have advance rates, right? Because I'm in a couple of these drafts where I stacked 7 receivers to start. But on Underdog, we have advance rates from the BBM of the past. For DraftKings, I don't know if I can get away with 7 because even strong receiver teams sometimes go 8. And so I don't know if I'm pushing the grain or I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah, I mean, but you also got to remember, I'd have to look at the advance rate stuff too, because I think DraftKings is just going to be different than Underdog based on some of the value you get at certain positions. Like it's easier to get the wide receiver value, like another round here on DraftKings, but the quarterback stuff's condensed. I think it all correlates to your advance rates. Plus you get the extra 2 spots, right? So it's a little different. I took Mac Jones just to stack with the forever injured Juju Smith-Schuster, and I also have Ramondre. So went with that stack to go with my Eagle stack. And the fun thing is I get to draft. I drafted my 2 favorite teams for stacks. So look at that.
I'm going to end up with 3. Will I end up with 3 quarterbacks? That's a great question. I think I will. Maybe.
I think 3 quarterbacks make sense for your team. The question is, are you going to be able to get a 3rd quarterback? We're going to be getting into the 17th round. We're looking at the quarterback list. It's getting a little dicey. You can get Tom Brady and hope for a miracle return, I guess.
No. We don't need to be doing that. It's like last year when people were drafting Will Fuller and Julio Jones. We don't need to be wasting our time.
We don't need to bring up Will Fuller, Daigle, and my 20.
There's no way you're drafting Will Fuller last year when you knew he was retired. You knew he was done. He even said like those 4 games in Miami, like he wanted to retire at that. He hated it because all he did for his entire career. It's not his fault. It's all he did for his entire career was rehab, dude. That shit wanes on your brain.
Where do I want to go here? I think I'm gonna grab. Ugh, it's all gross. It gets so gross. I'm gonna grab Fournette. That's what I'm gonna do.
You're right. That is gross.
It's super gross.
Even Gus Edwards is gone. Y'all, leave me some running backs.
I mean, Fournette just feels like of the veterans that are out there, the one guy that will actually sign with a team. Like I'm worried Kareem Hunt doesn't sign anywhere unless it's mid-season replacement level stuff. I think Fournette could just wind up with somebody by camp. Probably the Chargers, I feel like, in my bones.
All right. My third quarterback is going to have to be someone who probably isn't a quarterback at all.
Oh, my God. We're doing the Trey Lance thing?
I mean, I have George Kittle and Elijah Mitchell. I'm just, with Jahan Dotson. I'm just trying to make the stacks make sense. And it's my third quarterback. And just in case Brock Purdy is not ready, just give me a chance.
I was so anti-Lance last year, and it was so sad that he was knocked out because of injury, because then I couldn't victory lap it, and I wanted to. I'm telling you right now, I wanted to victory lap that, but I couldn't. Drew's in here, just wanted to brag about his Justin Jefferson, Garrett Wilson, Jalen Waddle start over the weekend. That sounds like a lot of fun.
All right, I'm getting my Anthony Richardson stack through Josh Downs, who was injured for OTA, so that's good. It's a great start.
All right, I tried to be nice to you, and I left you Conklin to go with your Aaron Rodgers stack, but I can't
draft another tight end. Remember, I started 2.
Oh yeah, you started
just by structure. Yeah.
God,
I have someone else in the bag. Don't worry, but I am going to need another running back. That's the issue.
I had Kyle Dvorak on a week or 2 ago, and we were talking about the Jets passing offense. And do you think that McCole Hardman is the ultimate guy that Aaron Rodgers is going to hate? It just feels like the perfect person for him to hate.
Yes. McCole Hardman also just like strictly a gadget receiver that I don't take seriously. Like what was it? I don't want to just say a stat out loud. Hold on. Let me look this up. I know I tweeted it at some point because when the Jets signed him for a lot more money than they should have, I just laughed. I was like, come on now. 52% of his fantasy points were gained on touchdowns, except the Chiefs were first in red zone touchdown rate, whereas Aaron Rodgers' Packers were 23rd. Also, his touchdowns, 5 of 6 of them came inside the 10-yard line because he's just a gadget receiver. So I don't even know if their offense, Hackett and Salah, has enough creativity to give receivers carries inside the 10-yard line.
Yes. Just to give your show, we were talking about it a little bit earlier, just to give your show another plug. I was listening to that episode where you brought on the 2 doctors, and I was swayed on to Breece Hall because of that episode.
I agree. So I was too.
So I was really on the fence and going back and forth on Breece Hall because the ACL stuff always worries me, but just based off of their analysis of that particular situation put me right back on that I feel comfortable drafting Breece Hall again. And it makes me comfortable. The same show also made me comfortable that I'm just going to fade Javonte Williams for the rest of this year.
I'd already been doing. I'd been ignoring completely. But they even, just to spoil the show, and remember, the most accurate podcast wherever you listen to podcast at, but with them even telling me that I was actually doing it wrong in targeting him with 100 ADP, even then you shouldn't draft him. That's what spoiled me. I was like, oh, because that's what I've been doing when he slipped to like 110. But if that's even wrong, because that's how serious the injury was, I need to back off even more than I was already doing.
Right. So unfortunately, I cannot do the Javonte Williams thing again this year. I had like 24% Javonte last year. Sad times, but
Hurts.
definitely hurts. I'm going to grab Trey McBride to go with my Eagle stack. Let's look at some playoff stacks here. So now I got an Arizona, Philly, New Orleans, Tampa, Rams, Giants, Miami, Baltimore, and Cincinnati, Kansas City stack going on.
I don't know if Hacker meant that Corey Davis is one of his favorite late round guys, but it makes sense in my stacks. And because of all the things we just said about McCole Hardman, I think the issue that no one's seeing is that like Corey Davis is still here to play in 3 wide sets. He's there, and he's still pretty good. Like he's a fine wide receiver 2 or 3 in any offense. Was just more than capable last year as well. So yeah, I like Corey Davis quite a bit in the last rounds, even on Underdog.
I cannot believe that Corey Davis is only 28 years old, because I'm convinced he's been in the league for 14 or 15 years at this point.
I know. It's been such a long time.
It just feels like he's been there forever, right? Like it just doesn't stop. So what is my build right now? I have a 2-6-8-3 build. I don't need another quarterback. Kind of look at this as I don't need a tight end. So I think I can go either way when it's back on me here. Is there anyone that makes sense for my team? Let's see. Looks like the Buffalo guys are all gone, as is expected. Maybe after you draft. Let's see who you go with here.
Oh, I'm gonna get a little. Oh, okay. It took for me. Never mind. I was about to draft Zamir White with Josh Jacobs, but Trevion Williams is fine.
Spicy. I'm going to draft. Let me just look at running back. Make sure.
Gosh, my running backs are. I'm gonna need a lot of luck. A lot of luck.
That's fine. It's all fine. You can get a lot of luck.
You can get luck.
I'm going to grab a guy that you got me on, and I don't know how to say his last name yet, but let's grab Puka from the Rams.
It is Puka Nacua.
Puka Nacua.
To let everyone know, like I understand anytime they throw a wide receiver, any offense in the backfield, everyone calls that player Deebo Samuel, but Nacua rushed for 350 yards and 5 touchdowns over his last 2 years in college. And remember, Sean McVay has seen Deebo Samuel since both joined their teams. McVay got hired by the Rams and Deebo Samuel got drafted by the Niners in 2019. And since 2019, Deebo Samuel has averaged 11 yards per touch against Sean McVay. He's pissed off about it. He's finally tired of it. So he went out and tried to get his own Deebo Samuel. That's how they were using Puka in OTAs as well. And not to mention that receiver tree, the target tree behind Cooper Kupp is just wide open. So if Stafford bounces back, if Stafford's healthy more than anything, then there is a possibility Nacua breaks out in the last round.
All right, let's go over your team to start. You were drafting from the 9 hole. You went Stephon Diggs, Garrett Wilson, Josh Jacobs, Amari Cooper, George Kittle, Hollywood Brown, Darren Waller, Jahan Dotson, Anthony Richardson, Aaron Rodgers, Elijah Mitchell, Khalil Herbert, Jonathan Mingo, Jerome Ford, Chuba Hubbard, Tyson Chandler, Trey Lance, Josh Downs, Corey Davis, and Trevion Williams. So interesting build, the double elite. I still consider Waller like the last of those elite guys. So double elite tight end build. And then you go with the 3 quarterbacks. Unfortunately, Trey Lance. I guess like getting used to DraftKings, I would have tried to maybe take my quarterback around before so that I got a guy that I liked a little better than Lance if it was me. But that comes with the territory, right, of these DraftKings drafts. Other than that, I think it's a relatively solid build. You are punting running back, but you got enough bullets in the chamber there.
Hard punt running back, unique tight end elite, and heavy on Jets, Cleveland week 17, and Raiders, Colts. Plus I have San Francisco, Washington sprinkled in too.
And I went with, from the 7 spot, A.J. Brown, Jalen Hurts, Ramondre Stevenson, Jerry Jeudy, Chris Godwin, DeAndre Swift, Cam Akers, Cortland Sutton, Zay Flowers, Devon Achane, Juju Smith-Schuster, Rashee Rice, Kendre Miller, Irv Smith Jr., Jalen Hyatt, Mac Jones, Leonard Fournette, Tyler Conklin, Trey McBride, and Puka Nakua. So lots of different Week 17 matchups sprinkled in there. Got the Arizona Philly with the Trey McBride bring back. Got a couple of Rams to go with Zay Flowers for that stack. Kendre, Chris Godwin, Devon Achane. Sorry, I said Zay Flowers on that. I totally blew that one. It's Cam Akers, Puka to go with Jalen Hyatt. So all in all, I don't hate my team either. I think it's relatively decent. I do a lot of these punt tight end builds. Something I've been really reconsidering lately is to get some more of the elite tight end builds in. I think my problem is I'm doing so many elite quarterback builds that when you try to go elite QB and elite tight end, it really crushes you at either the wide receiver or running back position for sure. And it makes your team a little bit harder to build.
I think the most offensive stacks I have right now are Chargers and Patriots and 49ers, just by what you're capable of doing. Like, you can always get 3 or 4 Chargers at the back of the first round if you draft there. Brock Purdy is still a last round quarterback, so it's easy to go Kittle, Ayuk, or Kittle and Christian McCaffrey if you want, and like stack up Purdy with Washington players. And then Patriots, you can just get them all at the end. So and you don't even need Tyquan Thornton. Like Devontae Parker will probably be in 2-3 wide sets, so I don't mind adding him. Hunter Henry is one of my favorite options, tied in 9 in points per game, and no one even cares 2 years ago, since last year's performance from the Patriots was a complete dud. But new OC and Bill O'Brien, plus Henry still tied for the team lead in red zone targets, which Kobe Myers, who's no longer around, last year. So he gets targets where it matters most. So those are kind of the 3 offenses I'm targeting right now. And you got a good discount on Cam Akers, but I still think Cam Akers is one of the most undervalued players in all of drafts. He just goes way too late for someone that handled 83% of the team's running back touches over the last month. And all they did then was not even sign anyone. They just drafted a day 3 running back. Like, I don't care at all.
And I think the thing with Cam Akers is he's such a good pick for any of your structures that you're building. So you can be building a 0 RB structure, get Cam Akers as your first running back, or he could be like that 4th RB or 3rd RB on more of a robust or any type of build like that. Could even almost be like a double hero running back situation. I think it just fits everything. So I like Akers a lot. We took him on our $500 single entry as our first running back.
Last year's Rams offense as well, the first of Sean McVay's units to average fewer than 62 plays per game. They average 58.5 and less than a 60% pass play rate from neutral game script. So I'm also expecting more volume for everyone, which is why I keep going into Cooper Kupp as my 102 overall, actually, over Christian McCaffrey. And that's not to say Christian McCaffrey shouldn't be there, but the way drafts are structured right now, I do believe you don't have to have Christian McCaffrey, since all those RBs we talked about are falling back to the 2nd and 3rd round. So I ignore McCaffrey at 102, 103 at this time. But yeah, I think we should be buying into the Rams offense as one of the easiest bounce back situations for everyone.
Well, the McCaffrey thing is interesting because a lot of people that are in our Discord that we've had conversations with, myself included, we're not purposely fading CMC. To your point, it's just structurally everything works out better drafting Tyreek Hill or Cooper Kupp or hell, Travis Kelce. I think AJ Brown's right there too, personally. Oh, and it's not over CMC. It's what you're getting to build your team with the wide receivers so pushed up. So it's not like people are like, oh, I hate CMC this year. It's I can't draft them because structurally I need to draft one of these wide receivers to do what I want to do. So
I know this is not Spike Week's forte, but I genuinely cannot wait until home league, like redrafts, because already seeing some early, as we talked about, mock drafts out there right now, dude, like the recency bias, it always kicks in. So players like that, players like Cooper Kupp, they're going to fall immensely. Like they're going to fall to the 2nd round in some home leagues. It's going to be the Wild West. It's going to be great.
It's so crazy every year because especially now that I'm doing like 500-600 drafts, and I have my one home league that I've been in that I run. It's probably been 15 years now. And I know that half this league is only doing one draft, and it's this draft. And I've been drafting since freaking February.
Yeah.
To see what they do and then just still not win it is always great. I enjoy it immensely. I get so happy every year. So
it's so much fun.
All right, Daigle, tell the people one more time where they can find you.
4for4.com, and through the rest of the evening, so until midnight, not only are the police apparently coming, but also you can get a free 4for4 t-shirt, any kind of gear, polo, golfing polo if you want that, by signing up for any of the subs. The cheapest for redraft, the betting one, the DFS one, whichever you want, you get a free coupon for any of the gear in the store, and that lasts until midnight. So now's the time to get in because it is cheaper at this time of the year as well.
And what I will say is my content consumed has lessened over the last year, but the one show that I always make sure I listen to is whatever John Daigle does, because he's one of the smartest men in football.
Well,
so make sure you're listening.
This Wednesday, also Bill Barnwell joins me. So the most accurate podcast and 4for4.
So beautiful. All right. So until next time, we will catch you later. Daigle, thank you so much for doing this on short notice. We will see you later. Peace. Woo! Those were some spicy takes. Want to stay up to date with all of the other spicy takes we're going to have over here at Spike Week? Why don't you press that subscribe button below? You turn notifications on, we draft a team, boom, you know about it. We have another spicy take, boom, you know about it. You can be there. You can draft with us. You want to stay up to date? That's how you do it. All right, we'll catch you later next time here at Spike Week.